Hey Philip, welcome to the stream. Yes, I can guarantee that the Bard is going to do better than the Paladin. And we'll talk about that when we get started on it. Hey Lord Henry, thanks for being here. Yeah, that fight in the last light in, it really, more than any other fight in the game, is based on RNG. And you're going to see it today, probably. Because what really makes that fight difficult are two things, and so far, I haven't been able to determine how to reliably trigger them that way, if you can, or if it's just random. The first is Alfira. In our Paladin playthrough, Alfira was there, laying on the ground, impaled. That does not happen every time. And I do not know how it happens. It's actually fairly rare. I've played that fight on 4 different playthroughs. And I've played that each playthrough probably 10 times or so throughout the course of last week, just to see if I could reliably get it to trigger one way or another, and I can't. Alfira laying on the ground there, being impaled, is a fairly rare occurrence. Out of those 35 to 40 times I played it, she only appeared on the ground 3 times. Now, I think what actually triggers it is during the cutscene, to be honest with you. The cutscene plays out slightly differently based upon what's happening around you in the actual game background. In the cutscene, one of the winged horrors comes in and lands next to the bar and casts an ability which knocks down 2 harpers. I think what is happening is that sometimes, depending upon where Alfira is, or exactly what animation her character's doing before that cutscene triggers, she gets caught in that spell. Even though that spell was triggering during a cutscene, a predetermined cutscene, I think it's affecting her character the same way it's affecting the other Harper characters. And that's what's causing her to do that. So she never gets up off of her bar stool, but she does move around on that bar stool. She leans backward, and I think that's what's actually causing it, because it's fairly rare that she gets impaled down there. If she is not there, that fight is significantly easier because you don't have to try and protect her. But you don't know if that's going to happen beforehand. So we're going to kind of show that a little bit today with the Bard playthrough, and we'll see. The other thing that makes that fight RNG based is what Marcus does with his first turn. Marcus can choose not to go after Isobel. And quite often he actually chooses not to go after Isobel. He can one-shot crit Isobel on his very first attack, and you don't have any way to avoid it. So what he chooses to do determines a lot, and he went right after Isobel. He just started wailing on her right off the bat. Whereas in those other playthroughs that I tested, he went after Isobel only about half of the time. He went after one of my other characters, or in one playthrough, he actually flew all the way out of the building, up onto the roof, through the hole in the roof that the winged horrors came through, and landed down on the first floor, and went after one of the harpers on the ground floor. So I'm not saying the Paladin playthrough's cursed, because I don't believe in any of that. But we have gotten some behind-the-scenes roles on the game which have massively affected the Paladin playthrough, which is kind of funny because I was always planning to play the Paladin playthrough in a little bit of a contrarian way, not necessarily an evil playthrough, or I would have picked Dark Urge, but showcasing different choices. And I guess this gives me a good opportunity to be able to showcase a major choice. I would not have done this. Well, I take that back. I might have still lost the last light in on the Paladin playthrough. It was also one of the reasons why I chose to kill Karlach in the Paladin playthrough, because I knew I knew there was a good chance I wasn't going to end up saving the last light in. I would not have done it this way though. I would have lost the last light in after I had already completed all of the main quests here in Act 2, except for the Gauntlet of Shar. And then the choice there would have determined that I've lost the last light in. But in that case, I would have already gotten all of the items and things like that I needed from the NPCs in the last light in. I just would have had a slightly different major consequence than what we're going to see in the Paladin playthrough. So, hey David, thanks for being here. Yeah, and you don't have to. You can delay talking to Isobel for as long as you want. We're just going to do it so that we can get the buff to allow us to explore everywhere, as opposed to going to Moonrise to get the Moon Lantern. That's the only real difference. If you go to directly to Moonrise and pick up the Moon Lantern there, or if you side with the Harpers and you're able to pick up the Moon Lantern from the Drider's corpse and they don't take it with them, then you don't need to get the buff from her, because you're going to have access to both buffs, so to speak, all at the same time. Yeah, Philip, it is. It's one of those things that jumps out and gets you, and it's kind of devious in that fight is so consequential. It is, in my opinion, the most consequential fight that you have seen up to this point. especially and how it impacts the rest of your playthrough. I mean, obviously the boss fights are important. You know, how you play out certain things are very, very important. But this, for not being a boss fight, is the most consequential fight in the game. And it gets dropped on you without any warning. If you've come directly to the last light in. So, yeah, it's one of those that kind of jumps out and get you. In your personal playthroughs, you have the option, you know, of being able to save scum when it doesn't go too well. Yeah, I mean, I get that, Philip. I think at least I'm in a special situation, you know, because I'm not save scumming my playthroughs. If I was, I wouldn't accept, you know, what happened. I'd go back and play it again. I just reloaded. If you're playing honor mode, where that's not an option, you're prepared for this fight because you've obviously had a playthrough or 2 or 3 or 4 under your belt already before you decided to choose honor mode. So I think not warning you about it, you know, gives, you know, it's a lot of suspense, it's a lot of surprise, it's a lot of, I like that about the game. However, it's also really devious. So the devs kind of threw one at you there that, because yeah, if you go the way that my Paladin is going, I'm going to spend a little bit talking about all of the things that I'm going to lose because of that. And it's a lot. It's an incredible amount of loss that I am taking on by not save scumming that fight. But like I say, it's interesting. So it's not like my game is over. It just means that things get more difficult, and I'm going to have to adjust to it. Not going to lie though, losing the potent robe, that really upsets me. It really, really upsets me. I have build plans for Will that robe makes that build, and now I cannot do that build with him on that playthrough. So yeah, just like I say, it is what it is. Yeah, David, that's going to be the fun part. You're gonna see that today. There is a whole lot of red. There's a whole lot of red that is waiting for us. You're gonna see some characters really shine today. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna explain it when I get into the Paladin playthrough. I won't get into it before the Bard here, but yeah, I'll explain what all I lost with the Paladin playthrough when we get to that point later on this afternoon. But yeah, I've lost the ability to get a whole bunch of very powerful items. They're just gone forever. And the Paladin is going to have a much harder time going through life for the rest of the playthrough because of it, but we'll see when we get there. So we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to today's playthrough, episode 26 of our Baldur's Gate 3 Bard gameplay series. I'm Commander Jorval, and I want to thank you for coming along on our journey today. So, on some admin notes, first of all, Happy New Year to everybody. I hope your year is starting off in the best way possible. It's always a time for new beginnings, and I want to thank you all for sticking with me again for the start of the new year. Hopefully we'll have just as good a year this year as we did last. So thank you all for being here. I certainly appreciate it. And like I say, Best of wishes to you in the new year. So as far as the rest of admin notes goes, it's a fairly short week this week on that because Larian has said that there's not going to be anything happening. They're all starting to get back into the swing of things this coming week after the holiday break. So not a whole lot going on in BG3 news. So I think that should wrap up our admin notes. So on our recap, at the end of last week's live stream, we had made it to the last light in. And our bard approached the last light in a much different way than the Paladin playthrough did. And at the end of last week, we had talked to Damon and we had gotten Karlach all fixed up with her infernal engine, and we had Damon craft some materials for us. He had crafted some armor for us and some explosives. And today we're going to jump back in and start our explorations around the last light in. However, just like I had promised at the end of last year, we're going to start off with a respec, and we're going to get into that first. Okay, so here we are in the last light in, and we had talked to Damon here previously, and he had crafted us a full set of the flawed Helldusk armor and also some Orthon explosives. I said at the start of the year that I had at the end of last year, that I had plans for all of the characters, both my main playthrough characters as well as the origin characters. And I normally would not do this respec until level 8. Level 8 is a great breakpoint to start rethinking how you want to approach your characters, because if you do multi-classing and you break it apart 4 and 4, then you have access to 2 feats that way. If you break 1 into 5 and 1 into 3, then you have a lot of the level 5 benefits, which are normally really fairly big for your main class, but then your other subclass also has the level 3 benefits, which normally include your subclasses. So 5 and 3, 4 and 4 are great breakpoints for multi-classing, and that's why level 8 is normally the place that I would do that, not level 7. However, we can get most of the way there, and you can see that we're still quite a ways away from level 8 here. Even in my personal playthrough, I was still 1500 or 1800 XP away from level 8 when I got into Act 2. We're going to be gaining quite a bit of XP as we go through the explorations here, because we are not going to go to Moonrise Towers right off the bat. We're going to be doing a lot of exploration around other places, and we're going to level up fairly quickly. So we'll reach level 8 fairly shortly, so I don't think we're delaying a lot of things by doing it this way, but we are going to be a little bit short on our power just based upon what we're going to do, because we're doing it at level 7. And what we're going to do is concentrate on our main character, our bard. We do have to have this encounter first, though.
Playtime's over, pet.
Oh, I love this time of year. The dickheads start popping up wherever you look.
What do you want, Mizora?
Drop the attitude and perk up your ears. You've got a new mission. Absolute's cult has gone and grabbed one of Zariel's assets. A devil, and a powerful one at that. They're locked up in the cult's fortress, Moonrise Towers, and you're getting them out. Well, your playmate's wasting precious time. Let's see about getting her priorities fixed. Ahem. Clause Z, Section 13. Should promised soul refuse obeyance or neglect duty, the pact holder shall cast the promised into Avernus as a lemure. I'll make it simple. Will fails or refuses, and he turns to a thick blob of stink flesh and sinks to Avernus. Now, be a good boy and play fetch, pup, or you'll spend an eternity sizzling in the hells.
Mizora's words may be flippant, but they are tinged with desperation. She cannot afford for Will to fail this mission. This may be your best chance to negotiate Will out of his pact.
Okay, so that perception check there is your one and only chance to get this dialogue option. Okay, if you don't pass it, you're going to get different dialogue choices here, and you're not going to be able to make this choice. So if you're going through this, the first long rest that you take once you get into the Shadowlands, this is going to occur. So you might want to, before you do it, save or do a quick save or something. You can reload to make sure you pass the wisdom perception check. So, a couple of things about this. First, look at the projection of Mizora. It looks different. It's tinged in red. And that's because this isn't really Mizora. This is a projection of Mizora. And that gives you a clue there, or a hint. So, we're going to click here.
Oh, and what condition is that?
Your mind links with Will's, drawn in by his increasing panic.
What are you doing?
Will relaxes, and your connection fades.
And now you get an option to talk to Mizora about this.
Interesting. Now, why should I go letting my favorite pet off his leash?
Okay, and now you have choices here on how to approach this role. Okay, so I have performance proficiency here. Now, these things lead to different dialogues that you're going to get. But they all lead you down the same road as far as the final outcome. So, we're going to go with performance here. It's a 14 DC. We have a +7 bonus. Oh boy, that's bad. Our first roll of the new year is a nat 20. That doesn't bode well for the remainder of the year. As far as balancing that out goes. I have a feeling I'm going to pay for that later.
I've never seen such a fearless display of sheer idiocy. Bravo! Fine. I'll play your game. But I amend the pact once the mission's done, not before. Clause F, Section 9. Soulbinder shall bestow reward or favor only upon soul-bearer's fulfillment of related obligation. Now, to Moonrise, pet. And do mind the shadows. They've been especially hungry.
You're going to see much more about that as we go. So, the first thing that we want to do, and I actually need to make sure I am streamer friendly here. So we will have some conversations while we're here, so let's get those out of the way.
Glad to have an ally.
God damn it! Why did it have to be Mizora? Why did it have to be Zariel? We're supposed to risk our necks to get one of her assets? What if it's a runaway like me? Or something far worse? I never forget what Will did. Not ever. I'm here because of him. And I'd do just about anything to help him. But devils never lose. You know that, right? Sure, they'll give you a bit of tat here and there. But the house always wins.
Okay, so Karlach obviously has very strong feelings about Mizora and obviously Zariel and anybody else from Avernus, so she's going to be upset about any of the interactions that you're going to have with Mizora or anything like that. So to be fully expected from her. So we'll check with her again and see if we have any other dialogue options.
Hey, soldier. Listen, I'm never going back. If you said I could die right now, or live 1,000 years in the Hells, I'd choose to go out now with my freedom intact. I don't expect anyone to understand that. But I've been dealt a hand most people don't have to contemplate playing. You heard Damon. There is no solution. It's hell or bust. I choose bust. But I don't want to talk about this now. I've been given a huge gift. I can touch the people I love for the first time in a decade. And for the first time in a decade, there are people I care about all around me. Let me enjoy that. Please. Thanks, soldier. I just want to celebrate this. At least for a little.
Hey, Astarion, welcome to the stream, and Happy New Year to you as well.
Hey, soldier. Like I got something back. Something I've wanted for a really long time. When I touched you, I felt like a real person. My heart was racing, but I didn't hurt you. I don't have to be afraid of myself anymore. I don't have to hold back. Not sure the world's ready for unleashed Karlach, but it's getting it anyway. Thanks to Damon. Thanks to you. Thanks to fate. Touch! Touch everything! Touch everyone that'll let me. Shake hands, dance a waltz, maybe even kiss a face or two if I find a good candidate. The world's my funhouse. Me too, soldier. Gods, me too. For every knock we take, I feel like I get a little treat just to keep me going. Ugh, I don't want to think about that now. Misery always overstays its welcome, and joy leaves too soon. I'll cry later, but not now.
Okay, so that finishes up the conversations with Karlach.
I've been thinking about the runes Cazador carved into my back. I don't know much about Infernal, but I know anything written in Devil script is going to be bad news. I'm afraid that through those runes, somehow, Cazador might still be able to dominate me. Any excuse to get my shirt off, I see. But no, I don't think another viewing will serve any purpose. I need someone with a little more expertise. Our devilish friend, Raphael. If anyone's going to know about infernal text, he will. Well, we won't know until we ask now, will we? Unfortunately, he comes and goes in his own schedule, so we'll just have to look out for any sulphurous odors or the sound of questionable poetry. Meanwhile, I think I'll spend some time studying the art of infernal negotiations.
Okay, so we'll see if there are any more dialogues here.
So, the untouchable Karlach is untouchable no more. I'd shake her hand, but she can still snap me in two, so probably safest to skip it. It's not a plan yet. More a feeling. Just an itch at the back of my mind. But I know I'm missing something. Whatever Cazador did to me, it was more than his usual sadism. It had purpose. Once I know what that purpose was, maybe a plan will present itself. But for now, I just need to scratch this itch.
Okay. So, Astarion is obviously interested in talking to Raphael, and we'll have to find Raphael to talk to him. I am also burdened by these things. Okay, but we're going to keep them for now. We'll have a choice to make here in a little bit. Let's go talk to Shadowheart.
Poor Cullough. She can finally seek out the touch of another, only to be told she might not have much time left.
Okay, so nothing new for Shadowheart. Actually, we are. I'm tired of... Talk to Gale.
I know well the pain of seeing your life's hourglass running empty. Grasping at any means of slowing the grains as they slip inexorably through your fingers. Karlach's fate may be ordained, but her actions are not. She will make each breath count. You can be sure of that.
And Will obviously has some things to say.
The more bullshit she pours, the more of it I'm forced to swallow. Mizora set me on fiends inside and outside the Hells. She's never ordered a rescue. Gods. She makes a mockery of everything the Blade stands for. Such an asshole. Thank you for sticking your neck out for me. I mean it, but I'm not going to celebrate till I'm actually free. Can already feel her scheming. She won't let me go without a fuss. Trust me on this. Not a one. All that matters is that we free it. Fail, and I'm made a mindless blob clawing at demons on the front lines of the Blood War. And it means everything to me. I always knew what my future held, and I know I chose right. How beautiful it must be to know you can hold a hand, caress a cheek after going so long without. We'll get Karlach fixed up, right? There's always a way. There has to be.
Okay, and we don't have to talk to Halsin here. Halsin, it's important to realize he's got an effect right now. Halsin is not a full member of our party, or of our group. He's still kind of an outsider looking in a little bit. But he's going to have this blessing of Selûne, and that's what we're going to be going after here, this episode. And to do that, we're going to have a fight before we do. But first, let's go over and talk to Withers.
Thou hast now a bosom companion. Take care that thou art not distracted on thy quest, seeking the comforts of the flesh. Recall that in time, all becomes dust and bone.
Okay, so Withers is just saying, hey, look, don't get distracted by your love interest now.
Dost thou require a new ally? Or mayhaps a resurrection instead? As thou desire.
Alright, so important to realize the one limitation that Withers has. We've already seen one limitation, in that if you're playing as a Paladin and you're Oathbreaker, you can't respec until you have cleared your oath with the Oathbreaker Knight. However, the only thing that Withers isn't going to be able to change about your overall makeup here is your race. Now, Larian made a decision to decouple the ability point bonuses from race with the full version of the game. And that was a controversial choice, but what it did was allowed you to play to play any race you want with any class you want. There was no more a certain race is going to be more beneficial to a certain class than any other. However, that kind of covered up one major aspect that some races have, and that is the racial bonuses or proficiencies that those races get. For the build that I am going for with my Bard, I need shield proficiency. Shield proficiency is not something that I'm going to gain through the respec process. If you do not have shield proficiency from a racial bonus, then the only way you're going to get it through my respec here is by using a feat to do it. And that's an incredible waste of a feat. So when I built my Bard as a half-elf. Half-elves, along with the other half races, gain shield proficiency as a racial characteristic. It's a human characteristic, but any of the half-race characters, the half that is human, has shield proficiency that comes along with it. You also have some others that get it. I believe some of the dwarven races get it, and I think the high elf gets it. Not entirely sure, but something like the wood elf, if you chose it because you get increased movement speed, that does not come with shield proficiency. So if you're going to do this build with a race that does not have shield proficiency built into it, you're going to have to take a feat to get shield proficiency, or else you're going to have to take this Bard down a dual wielding route, which is certainly viable. It's just not something that I'm going to be doing with this Bard. So my choice of Wood Elf gives me shields, which for me is going to be very important for this. So my first class selection, I'm going to start off with Bard. My cantrip selections here don't really matter as much, with the exception of one, and that's Minor Illusion. Minor Illusion is kind of the poor man's way to group up enemy characters or characters that aren't yet hostile, but you want to put them all in a location. You can cast Minor Illusion from stealth. It will not break stealth, and you can cast it while you're silenced, and the enemies will go investigate that Minor Illusion and group up around it. That's going to be somewhat important for the playstyle that we're going to be doing. The next thing we're going to take is Light. We're going to be getting some of the other cantrip, a couple of other cantrips from a different source. So you want to be careful about what you're selecting here, because some you're going to get by default. So these are two that I'm looking for. We're also trying to avoid concentration cantrips, unless you're going to pick something that is for dialogue options only or something like that. We're going to be concentrating on something else during combat, almost exclusively. So now for our spells here, we're going to take stuff again that doesn't require us to do concentration. So Long Strider, that is a ritual. We can cast it as much as we want. So it's one of those wake up from long rest, cast on everybody in your party things. Speak with Animals is another one that you can cast at the start as a ritual, and it doesn't, you can just cast it over and over and over again. The last two kind of depends on who else might be in your party along with you. I'm going to pick Cure Wounds and Healing Word for now, just because, remember, we may or may not have Shadowheart in our party for long periods of time. She's with us, obviously, in Act 2, but she might not be with us later on. You're also going to see that some of these other things, like Tasha's and Dissonant Whispers, we have another opportunity to pick them up later on, if you would like. So you don't necessarily have to take either of those two now. You'll have another choice later on. Your starting instrument doesn't really matter. I'm just going to leave it where it is. And now we get to our ability points. So I never like to go less than 10 strength. Even if it's just for the carry weight, I always like it to be at 10. There are two different ways you can go with this build, and they focus around dexterity and constitution. There are a set of gloves that you can acquire where they will set your dexterity to 18. So you can utilize those gloves to do that and put more points into constitution instead. However, I'm going to be utilizing the Wondrous Gloves, and the reason I'm going to be doing that is, one, I get an armor class bonus out of it, but two, I gain an extra charge of Bardic Inspiration, and that Bardic Inspiration is going to be very useful for the subclass that I'm going to pick. So I'm going to put a bunch of points into Dexterity now to be able to, one, get me a good reaction on my initiative roll, but two, I'm going to be wearing armors that are going to allow me to utilize my maximum dexterity out of them. So a +3 on dex will count directly toward my armor class as well. So Constitution, I do not want to forsake. I want the additional hit points, but also Constitution matters with concentration saving throws. And having a way to have better saves on your Constitution for your concentration spells is going to be very important for, again, how I play this build. It's going to be relying a lot on not getting hit, but if you do get hit, having the ability to save on your concentration saving throw is going to be incredibly useful. Intelligence is going to be a dump stat for us. Wisdom, we're just going to put up to 10 because we don't want to have any minuses. There are too many saving throws that are debilitating with wisdom. So getting that up to at least 10 is going to be a good place to be. And then charisma, we want to be at 17. We're obviously going to be upping that as much as we can as we go. So that is my stat distribution. This gives us the ability to take Constitution and up it by 1 to get another bonus point to Constitution saving throws. And there are multiple ways that we can get that additional +1. But it also gives us the ability with Charisma and Constitution to be able to add 1 to either one of those skills and put us up to an even number and gain a bonus. Now with Charisma, that's a little bit less impactful because we have another bonus to that already. So looking at our skill proficiencies here and how we want to approach them, we have the same basic choices that we went with previously, and I think these still hold because we're going to be doing something else with sleight of hand. Astarion may or may not be with us a lot. Having the ability to get through locks and that sort of stuff, especially later on in the game when you're going to be going up against DC 25 and 30 locks all the time, it can be very useful, but we don't necessarily have all the additional expertises and proficiencies that the rogue class would get by default. So we may end up struggling with those, so I'm not going to put any more bonuses into sleight of hand. I've got another way to deal with those things. So we're going to keep performance deception and perception as our mains here. Okay, so now at this point we can go through our level up. Leveling up to level 2 as Bard is where we're going to stay. So again, the same things that we're used to getting. The important thing here is Song of Rest. That gets us an additional short rest. So now we have 3 short rests per long rest, and getting Warlock spell slots, getting Oath charges, Rage charges, that sort of stuff back an additional time is incredibly useful. Okay. So now for our spells here, I'm going to again focus on things that do not require concentration. And in this case, I'm going to pick Featherfall. Again, my Fairy Fire, Dissonant Whispers, Tasha's, that sort of stuff, I'm going to have another opportunity for those. But you have a lot of options here. I'm just not going to be picking things that need concentration. Okay, replace spell I don't need to. I'm good with the spells that I have. Now at level 3 we get a majorly important thing, and that's the choice of our subclass. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. But the spell I'm going to pick here is Knock. Knock is going to give me the ability to unlock any non-magical lock at whatever DC it is. It does not matter. Later on, just in case Astarion is not in the party, which, like I say, is going to happen fairly often. I need to get a little bit more utility out of my Bard here so that we can possibly not have Astarion be with us throughout more of that time. But the main thing here is your subclass. Now, we chose College of Valor last time, and that is what gave us the shield proficiency. That's how we were able to wear a shield. Well, we were also a half-elf, but if you're any other race that doesn't have shield proficiency, this is one of the ways to get shield proficiency, is through College of Valor. However, we are not going to do that. We're going to go with College of Swords, and as you can see, that does not include shield proficiency. Okay? it also includes only scimitar proficiency on your weapons, whereas College of Valor gets you all martial weapons. Okay, so you're taking a significant hit on what you can and cannot use to attack with here, and you're also not able to use shields because of it. Okay, so that's important to remember when you're going through this, that this choice means that you have to make up for those weapon choices and shields in other ways if you're going to go that way. Okay, the main thing here is that we gain a fighting style, and we're going to pick dueling because we are going to be using a shield. So that means we're going to get a flat +2 bonus damage with our weapon. College of Swords gets you these actions now. And this is where our Bard is going to become both damage dealing and or tank at the same time. The first is Slashing Flourish. This allows you to attack 2 enemies at once. It's like Eldritch Blast, being able to cast Eldritch Blast at 2 different targets at once. Slashing Flourish allows you to do the same thing. It uses a Bardic Inspiration charge to do it. And this is why I said I'm going to be using the Wondrous Gloves to give me an additional charge of Bardic Inspiration, so that I have more times to be able to use these actions. So this is like getting an extra attack at level 3 Bard. Okay. However, it's not necessarily just Slashing Flourish melee. You also have a ranged version of the same thing. So you can attack 2 different targets with your ranged weapon. Okay. So this also comes with another bonus, and that's Defensive Flourish. Defensive Flourish allows you to increase your AC by 4 for 1 turn if you hit. Now, with our dex being as high as it is, we hope that we roll early in the initiative list. We can use a Defensive Flourish to increase our armor class by 4 and make us that much harder to hit for the remainder of that round for all of the rest of the enemy combat that we have to deal with. Okay, incredibly powerful. I can get my armor class up to 32 utilizing Defensive Flourish and end game gear and setup. Okay, and that's incredibly hard to hit at that point. So if you're going up against those big time enemies that are going to hit you with horrible melee damage, Defensive Flourish, both the melee version and the ranged version, are there and available for you. Remember that armor class also protects you against spells that need a 2-hit roll. So like Scorching Ray, things like that, or Necrotic, or Chill Touch that need, or no, Chilling, what's the Necrotic range spell? Chilling Blast or whatever it is, the cantrip, that need an attack roll to hit you. This protects you from that as well, and you can get it either ranged or melee. So if you're not in melee range, you can shoot somebody with your bow, your armor class goes up by 4. Okay. The last one is somewhat useful, but just situationally, and that's Mobile Flourish. If you hit a target, it knocks your target back, which is again equivalent to what your pushing attack does, or what Eldritch Blast Repelling Blast does. It does it for 6 meters, which is farther than what Eldritch Blast and pushing attack do. Afterwards, you can choose to teleport to that target. So if you are and it's like Misty Step, you get to select where in that melee radius around the target you want to move to. So you can be surrounded by a bunch of enemies, you can push a target off of, you know, a high place or something, and you can choose to teleport down to his body on a lower level, and now it's just one-on-one with you and the enemy down there, and the others have to maybe dash to get to you or something like that. So can be situationally useful. Now, as far as replace spell, I'm not going to do anything with that. I'm still fine here. And now here at level 4 is where we start making a change. Okay, I can get an additional cantrip here. I can get an additional spell here. I can also take my first feat. However, we are not going to. The Bardlock is a favorite in tabletop. I am going to be building this class quite a bit differently than I would in tabletop. In certain main aspects, just because of some of the things that the game does differently than tabletop. And we're going to get more into those as we go through it. But Warlock is what we want to focus on now. There are so many synergies between the Bard and the Warlock to really turn my Bard not just from a support character, but also a support character who is also able to absorb and take and dish out enemy attacks and damage. Okay, so for cantrips, we obviously want to go with Eldritch Blast. That is a no-brainer. We're also going to go with Blade Ward here, and that was Bone Chill was the ranged necrotic version, which needs an attack roll to hit. But we're going to go with Blade Ward here as well. Being able to cast as a cantrip the ability to take half damage from martial attacks can be incredibly useful. For a subclass here, there are a couple of choices. Now, the popular one in tabletop is Fiend. Fiend is going to gain you access to a couple of spells here, which can be very, very useful. But the main thing is Dark One's Blessing, in that whenever you kill a target, you're going to gain temporary hit points. I am going to focus my Bard elsewhere, and I'm going to be focusing more along trying to lock enemies in place. I'm going to be fighting a certain way, and I don't want the enemies to be able to move away from me if I can prevent it. I want them all attacking me. And for that, I'm going to go with the Great Old One. Now, the Great Old One grants me access to some of those spells which I neglected earlier, but also gives me Mortal Reminder. So whenever I land a crit, this is not when you kill an enemy, but whenever you land a critical hit, that creature and any enemies nearby need to make a wisdom saving throw or they become frightened. Now, frightened, again, remember, you can't move. You are locked in place. The disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls is also amazing, but the main thing here is that you cannot move while it's happening. So now for my spell selections here, I have the options for either of those two spells that popped up. However, Tasha's is a concentration spell. Tasha's is great to have around for a single target disabling type of spell. As long as you maintain concentration, it just drops that creature off the map until they can pass that saving throw. With our charisma being really high, it just makes it harder to do that. However, I'm going to be using my concentration for other things. So I'm going to go with Hellish Rebuke. Now, Hellish Rebuke is a reaction that whenever you are attacked, and that means attacked not necessarily just by a melee weapon, but if you are attacked in any way, you can choose to take your reaction and a spell slot to deal 2d10 fire damage in response. So situationally can be very useful, but being able to damage a target and possibly kill it while it's not your turn can be very useful. As far as Dissonant Whispers goes, Dissonant Whispers is still good. It's a non-concentration spell. It's a ranged spell, which means I'm going to have to be careful on how I cast it, but it does frighten a target, which again locks them in place. This is the spellcast version of Mortal Reminder. So being able to lock another creature in place, and as well as giving them disadvantage on their ability checks and rolls, can be very useful. Arms of Hadar here is another one that is incredibly useful. Don't discount this. The way we're going to be playing, we're going to have a lot of enemies around us, hopefully, and being able to deal damage to a bunch of enemies around that are right around you can be incredibly useful. So I'm going to go with Dissonant Whispers though instead. And now at level 2 Warlock, we're going to gain our first invocations. Okay, so we'll look at our spells first. We have another option here on what we want to do, and again, we want to be avoiding concentration spells. Now, Hex is great for that additional damage, not gonna lie. However, we can't concentrate on Hex and another spell at the same time. So if we're going to be doing Hex, that means we're going to give up a major bonus in how we're going to do fighting. So I'm going to avoid Hex. And now I'm going to have the chance to take Arms of Hadar here. Eldritch Invocations is where things become interesting. Because we are not level 8 yet, and we're not going to be able to get another level in Warlock, we're going to be limited to 2 Eldritch Invocations. So Agonizing Blast, obvious. We're going to add our Charisma bonus to Eldritch Blast. You just take it, don't even think about it. Repelling Blast is incredibly useful. However, remember, right now I have other ways to repel a target. For right now, I can always take this later once I've leveled up. I need to take Devil's Sight right now. This allows me to see in magical darkness, which is how we are going to end up fighting as our Bard, and that's because Warlock level 3 is now going to give us access to the darkness spell. And this is what we are going to do. The play here is before you get into a fight, cast Minor Illusion, have your enemies get grouped up all in one location, make an attack against those enemies to initiate combat, and then immediately get into that area where they are, and then be able to cast Darkness to give yourself advantage on all of the attacks against them and give them disadvantage since they are blinded. Okay, so that's kind of the chain of how you're going to be approaching different combats. Now, if you cast Darkness and you're not in combat yet, the enemies are going to just move out of the darkness. So that first round, you need to be in combat and they need to be frozen in place by the turn system. Because otherwise, if you cast it, they're all just going to run out of the darkness and then it's not going to serve any good. So that's what Minor Illusion gets them grouped up. You get an attack, you use your action to be able to start the attack, and then you move in there with them, or you can stay away from them and let them all dash toward you, and then they're all still all grouped up. Then in your next one, you can cast Darkness, move in, and start attacking from there. So that's kind of how we're going to approach our Bard. And going in line with that, we're going to go with Pact of the Blade. This is, again, because of our Charisma, we want to, and our lack of weapon skills. Remember, with College of Swords, you only get proficiency with scimitars. Pact of the Blade is going to let us wield any weapon that we want by binding our weapon. It says you become proficient with it if you are not already. So this is a key thing to go along with the selection of College of Swords, is because now we can basically use any weapon we want. We just need to make sure that we bind it, and I'll again, of course, rely on my chat to help me do that, and not forget it as we go. So the last level up that we have available to us is, again, going to be a Warlock level up, and we can choose a cantrip. Now here, I'm going to go with Friends. It's another dialogue option that's going to help me with persuasion checks, and we need to be really good at those to deal with certain encounters. From my spell list here, we have a whole lot of options that are available to us, but Misty Step is huge. Now we have equipment right now that can give us access to Misty Step, but we are very quickly going to be outfitting our bard with things that are going to remove those. So having another access to Misty Step is going to be very useful. Now, don't discount Hold Person. Hold Person is incredibly useful here, and if you have a racial characteristic, such as you're a Githyanki or something like that, that has access to Githyanki war magic and gets Misty Step, then maybe Hold Person would be your best option after that. And now we get access to our first feat. Now, the feat selections here are really varied for what you can do with your bard. So, Alert is incredible. This is going to make sure that we are almost always first in the initiative chain when we roll it. And we cannot be surprised, which doesn't come into play very much, but there are certain encounters where it absolutely does come into play, and it can be a game changer, not being surprised to start off that fight. So Alert is incredibly useful. If you're not choosing the shield route, or even if you are choosing the shield route and you're going with dual hand crossbows and you're offhand, crossbow expert can be incredibly useful. If you're fighting inside the darkness sphere, then your enemies are going to be right up next to you. Being able to utilize your hand crossbows to attack two different targets that are within melee range and not having disadvantage can be incredibly useful. So something else to keep in mind with this type of playstyle that we're going to be doing is that crossbow expert can be really, really good. As far as the rest of them, they're more kind of in your flavor of stuff on how you want to play. So remember I said a bit ago that maintaining concentration is going to be key. We're going to do that through high armor class and not getting hit. But if you do get hit, maintaining your concentration to keep that darkness up and running can be the difference between life and death, especially if you're surrounded by 5, 6, 7 enemies. Okay? Warcaster is going to give you advantage on that concentration saving throw. It's also going to give you an additional cantrip, Shocking Grasp, that you can use as a reaction as enemies move away from you to cast against them. So Warcaster can be incredibly useful. Resilient is going to give you a bonus to one ability score. So in this case, it could give me a +1 bonus to Constitution, and I gain proficiency in the Constitution saving throws, which means I'm going to add my proficiency bonus, which right now is a +3, and it's going to go up to +4 fairly soon, to that Constitution saving throw for concentration, which is a huge bonus. It's not necessarily as good as advantage, but it's pretty close, especially as that proficiency score starts to go up. So resilient is another very, very good choice here for your selection. So we're going to have access to another feat fairly quickly, but that feat is not going to come until we get to level 9 overall. So I have a choice here on how I want to approach this, and for me, I'm going to go ability improvement, and I'm going to up my charisma to 19. Okay, and you'll kind of see why we're going to do that a little bit later on. Okay, so here's where we are with our ability points. Okay, this is where we kind of ended up here, and I'm just looking to make, yep. Okay, so this is kind of where we ended up, and now we can make sure of what our outfit is like. So the first thing I'm going to do is to put Falar Alluve back on. And I'm going to move the Blood of Lathander over to Shadowheart. Okay? Falar Alluve is going to give us that melody ability, which is going to up our damage if we're using Shriek, or up our ability to hit if we're using Singing in a radius around us, and we are hopefully going to be having enemies around us quite a bit. Okay, so I'm going to use Falar Alluve. We're going to make sure that we bind that. We've got the Wondrous Gloves, so this is going to give us 1 additional Bardic Inspiration. So that's going to be incredibly useful for using more of our College of Swords abilities. Right now we've got the Adamantine Scale Mail, which limits our dexterity bonus to 2. We have a +3 modifier on our dexterity right now, so we're losing out 1 bonus on armor class right now, but we're quickly going to get past that when we start dealing with the vendors here. As far as the cap of curing, that's okay for now. We're going to quickly move away from this, though, because we're not going to be using our Bardic Inspirations for a whole lot of buffing other characters. We are quite possibly going to be using it just to buff other main melee frontline fighters like Karlach or Lae'zel, but we are not going to be necessarily using it as a helping other people. We need those Bardic Inspiration charges for our College of Swords weapon actions. So Boots of Striding are fine for right now. We're going to quickly get away from these. As far as the rest of these go, again, Arcane Synergy is quite useful for me now, especially because when you deal damage with a cantrip, I'm going to gain Arcane Synergy, which is then my weapon attacks have additional damage that's equal to my spellcast and ability modifier, which right now is +4. So I'm gaining another straight +4 to my weapon attacks if I deal damage with a cantrip, and I have Eldritch Blast to be able to do that whenever I feel like it. Now, as far as Guiding Light goes, the only reason we really had this on here is just because of the light spell. We can leave that for now. It's 6 of one, half dozen the other, but we're quickly going to be removing that for additional damages, because right now something like the Caustic Band would give us an additional +2 bonus to our damage. So we're getting +2 bonus because we're using a shield because of the dueling fighting style. We're going to be gaining an additional +4 damage after we use a cantrip to deal damage. And we could gain an additional +2 damage from the caustic band straight up. So we have a lot of ways to increase the damage that Falorolu is going to do, in addition to the fact that we bind it as our pact weapon, and it is now available to us to have the additional +4 2 hit and 2 damage that goes along with it. So a bunch of things to keep in mind. We're going to be adjusting how this goes as we go through our level ups. So just something to keep in mind. So we're also going to swap out Wapira's on Shadowheart for the Holy Lance Helm. Shadowheart's got a high armor class. A lot of times she's going to be missed, and when somebody is missed, then they're going to take radiant damage, and because of the luminous armor, if an enemy misses her, then their radiant shockwave is going to go out, and any enemies around her are going to gain radiating orb, which gives another minus to hit for all of those enemies, and that's going to be incredibly useful as we start to go through this. Okay, so that's our Bardlock build. Right now we are sitting at a base armor class of 21. Once we buy a couple of items here, that base armor class is going to be up to 23. And then we can use our defensive flourish to up that to 27 whenever we get into real instances where we're trying to tank a bunch of stuff. Okay, so that kind of gets us where we are. So we're going to go ahead and
I'll give it a shot.
Go to bed here. Just looking for something that's going to give me 4. Okay, so fish do. So there we go.
The voice of the Absolute is strong here, and getting stronger. I don't know how much longer I can resist it. But it's good to see you're making progress. You took an unexpected route here. You did a brave thing, saving those people in the grove. Not everyone would have helped. It just doesn't stop. We are being bombarded by waves of telepathic energy. Wave after wave with hardly a breath between them. I almost dare not rest. Each wave a set of orders to the infected. The order for your transformation has been given many times already. Yes, but the orders are oddly erratic, as if the Absolute cannot make up its mind. I don't fully understand. In any case, the Absolute knows you carry me with you now. It wants to retrieve me. I am the only one who can resist the Absolute's influence. Hence its fear of me, its desperation. Unfortunately, that also means it is dedicating more and more resources to my retrieval. The task ahead is monumental, but we're all that stands between victory for the Absolute and freedom for all. This is not just about you and I anymore. It has become far bigger than us. You must infiltrate Moonrise Towers, discover the secrets of the Absolute, and put an end to it.
so we can finally be free. Now I must rest. And you must carry on. Do not let my efforts be in vain.
Okay, so looking at our party makeup here, I think we're okay to go with this. I'm not totally enthused with having Karlach here, but
let's have a look.
We'll go ahead and utilize her for a while here. And we're going to go here and look. So the flawed Helldusk we're fine without. Okay, so the flawed Helldusk gloves. These gloves are not armor. They are just gloves. So your weapon attacks are going to do an additional 1d4 fire damage no matter what. And you're going to get strength saving throws +1 out of it. Okay? So it's just a straight upgrade in damage to anybody who's doing a weapon attack. And for Karlach, right now, she's doing 5 to 18 damage, and she's wearing the gloves of the Growling Underdog, so she's gaining advantage from that whenever she's surrounded by enemies, which is, you know, incredibly useful. So now here, so does it not update, or does it just not stack? It must not stack with the Everburn blade. Okay. Yeah, it just doesn't stack with the Everburn blade. So, with Light of Creation, she's now gaining +2 acid from the Malefic, or the Caustic Band that she's wearing. She's got 1d4 fire damage and 1d6 lightning damage. So now we're far outclassing the Everburn blade. However, you can't use the Light of Creation unless you're a construct. Otherwise, you might stun yourself. So we're going to have to get past that to do it. And getting past that is going to eliminate the use of the flawed Helldusk gloves. So what you can do with this, however, is there are a bunch of fights here. And see, that's weird because it stacks with the Exterminator's axe. But it just doesn't stack with the Everburn blade. It's kind of unfortunate. That it doesn't stack with that. Okay. But what it does allow you to do is basically the Everburn blade, which was our go-to here. Now you can use any of your weapons, gain that additional fire damage that goes along with it, and now, like the Susser Greatsword is a +1, so I'm gaining +1 damage and +1 to hit, and I can silence a target whenever I hit it. So it allows me to gain more benefits than what the Everburn blade does. And then situationally, and we're going to run into those situations here, where we're going up against plants, insects, or small creatures. The Exterminator's axe can really start dealing out some serious damage to those, because it seems to stack with that conditional fire damage from Scourge of Pests. So we're going to keep that around for now. But again, it may turn into something where we're going to end up forgetting about that because of how we utilize the Light of Creation later on.
All right,
Okay, so we'll go ahead and just leave camp now. And now you want to take a second to get your hotbar working, because now I'm going to have to up my hotbar here. And I'm going to start moving things around a little bit to make them a little bit more sense. Okay. So here, remember the spells that we picked up, the first thing that we always want to do is bind our pact weapon, right? Okay. Now we have, and I normally like to arrange these kind of up here at the top. Okay. And then my flourishes, I like to kind of keep together. So my defensive flourish here, my slashing flourish, actually I normally have first. Then my defensive flourish, my slashing flourish ranged. Like that, so that I have my 2 versions of slashing, my 2 versions of defensive, and my 2 versions of mobile, with all the melees being at the top, which are the ones that I'm going to use most often. My Song of Short Rest here, and then I tend to put my other cantrips and things like that down here toward the bottom. Okay. So what I basically have is all of the post-rest things that I need to do right up here at the top. Because the next thing that you do is cast Longstrider on everybody. Okay, those are ritual spells, so it doesn't cost you a spell slot. They are non-concentration. So now everybody gains additional movement speed at the start, and it lasts until long rest. And the next thing that I do is cast Speak with Animals on myself. And again, that is another ritual spell, so it doesn't cost a spell slot. It lasts until my long rest, and now I no longer have to carry around animal speaking potions while I'm doing this. Okay, so the last thing that to always make sure that you're aware of is that Featherfall is also a ritual spell. So for 10 turns, I can now cast Featherfall without using a spell slot. So if I ever need to jump somewhere or something like that, and I'm going to take damage, I can make sure I've got Featherfall available to me, and it's not going to cast or use a spell slot to do it. Okay, so that kind of gets me where we are right now here and where we're set up. So talking to Damon again, now what we need to do is make sure that we're outfitted. Okay, so Damon's approval is at 100 right now, which is good. That's exactly where we want it to be.
Wonder if the gods are watching me.
We're going to go over here and talk to Quartermaster Tolly.
Yeah. There's more where that came from.
Stock up while you can. I only hope I brought enough to see us through.
Okay, so we have a persuasion option here. It's a DC 10. Our bonus is 10. Here comes my nat 1, right? Okay.
Cheeky. But, since you're asking...
Okay, she's going to give us a free camp supply, a free supply pack for that. And you can do that with every character.
If you're all right by Jaheira, you're all right by me.
Okay, so now Quartermaster Tally does not show up in Act 3 that I am aware of. However, some of the things that she has here are incredibly useful. They are just also extraordinarily expensive. Okay, we're going to want to buy a bunch of stuff from her, and we can spend a lot of money doing it. Okay, so some of these armors and things that you're going to pick up are incredibly expensive. So even though we're not going to see her later on, the amount of money that we're going to be spending here is outweighed by the amount of money that we would gain selling all of these armors that we have picked up. So we're going to give all of this stuff to her to raise her attitude level to the point where all of these things become a lot cheaper for us to buy, because we're going to end up saving money in the long run doing it that way. I would normally save a lot of these items to be able to sell them and get money back from them. But again, like I say, even if we sold all of these, we would get something like 2,400 or 2,400 credits or something like that. The amount of stuff that you want to buy between those two items right there, you've already gotten rid of all of those credits. However, if we up her discount to 92%, we're saving an additional 53% or something like that. And then we can buy 4 or 5 of these items for the same cost and money that we would have. So let's spend a little bit getting her attitude up here, just so that we can then buy some stuff from her. So we can now get rid of all of our torches, because we're not going to be leaving here until we've gotten the buff that we're looking for.
Sharp as ever.
Okay, so these are all Githyanki weapons. Okay, so 800 gold worth here. That upped her to 46, so we're halfway through her attitude. And we've given her 840-ish gold, give or take. Now, once you start getting to a certain point, you want to start being a little more careful about how much you're giving her. Okay, so another 530. Okay, so another 760. Okay, so giving her another 866, so we would have given her somewhere around 1,700 gold. That puts her up to 94. And now you just need to be, because now we're at 100. Okay, so we gave her about 1,800 gold to get her attitude up there to where it needs to be. And now if you look at her trade screen, we've now taken off of the 1T, we've taken 300 gold off of the price of this, and we've taken 400 gold off the price of the Mighty Cloth. Actually, 350 off of 1T. So we're saving half of the gold that we just spent just on these two items by themselves. Let alone all the other things that we're going to be purchasing from her. So we are going to make that money back in the savings here. All right, so now let's just go through and sell off the rest of these things. Okay, and now we can go about looking at what she has for sale. Now, the first thing are these arrows of dragon slaying. Whenever you come across these, buy them. Just buy them. You're going to need them later on, and your ability to find them later on is a little harder. Always pick up your healing potions. They're always really cheap by this point, especially when you've raised her attitude up. So always pick those up as well. Arrows of many targets are incredibly useful. So every time I long rest with her, I end up picking those up. Okay, so those are 3 things that I always end up looking for whenever I meet with her after a long rest, because she'll restock them every time. Now we start looking down at the other things she has for sale. So the Defender Great Axe is one of those two-handed weapons where it's a +2 weapon, which makes it nice. However, you also have a weapon action with it that instead of it hitting with +2, you can make it hit with +1, and you can use that extra +1 to increase your armor class and saving throw bonus for that turn. Right? So can be, again, very useful as a way to bump your armor class up just for that one specific turn to make you harder to hit if you're dealing with enemies that you either have advantage on and you don't need the additional +2 to help you hit with, or the additional damage. You can sacrifice a little bit of that to give yourself some armor class. So again, can be very, very useful. We have so much money, we're going to end up buying almost all of these things, even if we don't necessarily need them. The Incandescent Staff is great. It gives you an additional cast of Fireball whenever you might need it, and anybody can use it. It gives you ranged spell attack +1, which is, again, very, very useful for any time like you're trying to cast Eldritch Blast or anything that needs an attack roll to go along with it, and you gain resistance to fire damage. So, incredibly useful. The Hat of the Uninhibited Kashigo is another one of those uninhibited Kashigo items that are really monk-based. So whenever you deal damage with an unarmed attack, you gain a +1 bonus to your spell save DC, and that just synergizes very well with the spells that the monk uses while it's in combat. So we don't necessarily, this is the one item that we're not, well, you know, that's probably a good point, is because I might as well buy it. I've got so much money. I can always respec a minion to do it. So we'll pick it up anyway. We don't necessarily, we are not going to have a use for it, but there may be a point later on in Act 3 where I want to bring in a monk type character. And I could always bring in a hireling and outfit them with some of these things. The Barkskin armor is great. It's got an AC of 2. It's rare medium armor. However, as soon as you put it on, it increases your armor class to 16 via you now have a permanent barkskin condition. You don't have to, this is not, you know, concentration based or anything. So while it says your armor class is 12, it really ups your armor class to 16. So for medium armor, that is scale mail +2. And you also don't have any of the disadvantage that goes along with stealth checks or anything like that. It gives you advantage on Constitution saving throw checks. Now remember how important I said that was to maintaining your concentration. Right now I'm wearing adamantine scale mail, which is great. The reeling thing is really good. Magical plate reducing damage by 1 is great. Attackers can't land crits is great. This would give me the same armor class, and it would give me advantage on all of those concentration saving throws that I need to make if I'm getting hit. So the barkskin armor is a 1-for-1 trade out on my build right now that would give me an advantage that is specifically meant for a spellcaster type. And this is something that we're going to test out. I've done a little bit of testing of it on my own, and I really like how it works. And you'll see that here in a second. The obsidian laced robe is one of those responsive type things. I don't tend to use it. This is the one thing that I tend not to pick up. It grants you resistance to fire damage, which again is nice. If you succeed on a saving throw against any spell that anybody attacks at you with, and that includes dexterity saves on AoE spells, then you're going to deal 1d4 plus 3 fire damage back to whoever cast that spell at you. I tend to find that as a robe, you get more benefits about some of the other robes that we're going to be picking up. So Shade Clinger is another one of those when you're obscured type of thing, you have advantage on saving throws. Now this can be incredibly useful because we're going to spend our entire life being obscured. But not just us. Anybody who comes into darkness with us is also going to be obscured. And there they would have the advantage on saving throws. So your darkness can turn into a refuge for people, so to speak. Depending upon some of the other advantages that come along with it. But now we get down into the meat of why we're here. And the first is the 1T scale. Now, this is an exotic material, so you can add your full dex modifier to your armor class. So we're at +3 right now. We're only gaining +2 from dex because we're limited in that, just like you are with all medium armors. However, 1T is going to allow you to use your full dex bonus. So you also do not have the disadvantage on stealth saving throw or stealth checks, which we have here. You do not have it with the barkskin armor, but you also gain +1 to initiative rolls, which again, incredibly useful. The Mighty Cloth is clothing. This is not armor, but it is clothing that you wear that increases your strength score by 2 up to a maximum of 20. Unwavering Bowl is nice in that you can't be pushed against your will, so you can't be pushed off of cliffs or off of boats or anything like that. And you have advantage on any saving throw that is going to restrain you. Now, it also comes with Bull Rush, and this is very similar to some of the weapon actions that go along with it. You move forward in 9 meters in front of you, and you can move all of the enemies, or possibly knock them back 3 meters. It's available only when raging, so this is really keyed toward your barbarian class. The Cloak of Protection is our first encounter with a cloak outside of the cosmetic item we got from our digital deluxe edition. This is just a straight +1 to armor class and saving throws. No reason not to put it on somebody. And then the Shield of Devotion. I've talked about the Shield of Devotion a little bit in the Paladin playthrough. It's bugged. This is probably going to be patched out, and utilizing it can lead to certain exploits that I'm not going to do. But the base stats of Shield of Devotion are great, and this is why I don't pick Aid on any of my characters or a spell slot, is because the Shield of Devotion gives you Aid off the bat that you can cast. So you gain 1 additional level 1 spell slot, which is really, really nice, especially on your Paladin characters, because that can give you an additional Divine Smite charge, basically. But also on anybody who's going to need to cast level 1 spells with a frequency. So that can be a lot of different characters. So Shield Bash is okay. The thing that Shield Bash really synergizes with is that if an enemy is frightened and you knock it prone, they cannot get up. And that's because prone, to get up from being prone, you have to use movement speed, half of your movement speed to stand up. If you can't move, you can't use your movement speed to stand up. So if I've frightened a creature or a group of creatures, and then one of them manages to hit me and I knock it prone, it is going to stay prone until the frightened effect ends. And when they are prone, all attacks against it, all melee attacks against it have advantage. Okay? So it synergizes very, very well with the frightened aspects of what I'm going to be doing. Cinder Snap Gloves is something else that I normally tend to not take. It gives you protection from missiles to cast as a spell. This is a concentration spell, however, and there's not a lot of people that I want to have concentrating on something like this. But basically, ranged attacks have disadvantage, and any attack against you is cut in half as far as damage go. Gloves of the Balanced Hands is a way to get the 2-weapon fighting feat without having to take it. So when you make an attack with your offhand weapon, you add your ability modifier to the damage of the attack, which normally you can't do. So if you're using like dual offhand crossbows or something like that, this can be useful for that, getting full damage out of both crossbows. Also, if you are the dual wielding bard and you have like Knife of the Undermountain King and Life Stealing Sword here, this can help you gain additional damage out of both of those. So something useful for a build, but we're not going to be utilizing it. And last is Amulet of the Harpers. Now, Shield is great. And we're going to be dealing much more with Shield later on. This gives you advantage on Wisdom throw saving checks, which is great to begin with. Wisdom saving throws can debilitate your character entirely, and bad things happen to you. But Shield is a reaction. So when you're about to be hit by an enemy, you can increase your armor class by 5. Okay? It lasts for 1 turn. It refreshes after a long rest. But now, if I have an armor class of 21, which is soon going to be 23, somebody attacks me, I can activate Shield off of the amulet and get my armor class up to 28. I can also do a defensive flourish to get my armor class up to 32. Okay, and then you're just not able to get hit for that entire turn. Okay, so that's how we're going to be focusing on playing our Warlock. And then if we're our Bard, and then if we're fighting inside darkness, every attack against us while we're inside darkness has disadvantage. So you just turn into an unhittable machine while you're standing in darkness. Now, as for the rest of this, I always want to look at my dies, because now I'm turning into... Ooh, white and scarlet's pretty nice. Okay, And look at what we're spending. And this price here, if we did not have her attitude up to where it is, this would be almost 13,000 gold to buy all of this. Now, we could afford it, but why do we want to spend it when instead we can just give her a bunch of stuff and up her attitude and get us a 92% discount as opposed to a 39% discount? So like I say, much more worth it just to hand off all of those items and give them to her so you can buy her out of all of this stuff. Okay. And I think that gets us done with her.
Take care now.
So now, moving things around. So the first thing is the Shield of Devotion. Okay, if we put that there, that's going to gain us an additional level 1 spell slot. So now we're up to 5 here. The icon changes for that. So our level 1 spell slots aren't all that beneficial for us on the Bard, because our level 1 spells are Arms of Hadar, and that's about it. Everything else is pretty much a cantrip. However, we do now have the ability to cast Dissonant Whispers a lot, and since we're going to be relying on Frighten, it can be very, very useful. It's also really good on Shadowheart to be able to give her an additional level 1 spell, because her level 1 spell slots are arguably more important than mine. Next is the Cloak of Protection. So now my armor class is up to 22. So Will is going to get the Incandescent Staff. The Defender Great Axe can go over to Karlach. The Mighty Cloth, if we look at what happens now, Karlach has an 18 strength right now. So adding this here, she now has a 20. So she is now an additional +1 to hit and +1 to damage on everything that she does. Okay, and I wanted to look at something else. I did want to compare the Defender Great Axe. Okay, so yeah, the Defender Great Axe is going to have 1 more maximum damage because it's a +2 weapon, and I could also use it to up my armor class by 1 if I would like. So the Defender Great Axe is another one of those things that Karlach can just use straight off the bat. And get her a possible bonus to both damage and or armor class as she goes. So it just depends on whether or not you're encountering spellcasters more or melee characters as to how you'd want to fight this. Okay, so the Hat of Unit we don't need. So the Barkskin armor here. So right now we're at an armor class of 22. If we swap that out, oh, it's not giving me Barkskin because of... That's interesting. I don't think I've ever run into that before. Why it's not giving me the effect of Barkskin. I was wondering if it was because of a proficiency conflict or something like that. I wonder... Oh, okay. There it took effect.
I was...
Okay, so it says I've got it, but it's not showing it. That's interesting.
At least things have stayed interesting.
Yeah. So, strange. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it shows it here. So it's only applying the bark skin as if I was a spellcaster, is what it's doing. I thought that would have been overridden by the fact that I'm not wearing any armor. These are all just... Oh, my boots. That's what it is. It's not. It's not... It's just not triggering that at all. Yeah. It's just not triggering bark skin here at all. That's disappointing. Okay. Well, either way, like I say, I wanted to test this out. There's another place that this can go. So we normally have the adamantine scale mail here. So if you replace that with 1T, we stay at 22, and that's because your adamantine scale mail is 16, as opposed to the 1T scale being 15. So I'm not gaining an additional bonus out of my dexterity with adamantine, but it's got a +1 higher base armor class. So the 1T scale for my build right now is better placed on somebody like Astarion if you've multi-classed him into Ranger. The 1T scale can be incredibly beneficial for him to have. Okay, so the gloves of the balanced hands I don't need on me here. And then we have the amulet of the harpers. And I'm going to replace the spectator's eyes just because I don't need either of those two things. Okay. And the pearlescent amulet needs to go over here. And I think that's it for now. Okay. Yes, I think that's it for now. Okay, so now we are walking around on armor class 22. So we have the option with defensive flourish to up that to 26. And then we also have a reaction option to up that to 31. Okay, once per short rest, again, because shield is a... provided by the amulet here. It's not provided as part of a spell that we have a spell slot for. That we're going to address later. So now for the rest of the Last Light Inn here. We have a lot of stuff that we can do and people to talk to inside of Last Light. And we're going to do some talking here. And we're going to start with Mattis.
Something's on my mind.
Welcome to our humble... Wait, are you Cullough? A lot of us were in Avernus. We saw you fighting. You were so good.
Well, yeah, I guess I was. I mean, you should avoid fighting for devils if you can. But if you can't, it helps to have a good right hook.
I saw you lay out a Moor demon in 2 hits. Bam! Bam! We were all like, whoa!
Ever heard of the Blade of Frontiers, kid? If you like monster smashing, you might be a fan of his work.
Who's that? a lovely chap.
Didn't kick ass in the Blood War, but that's neither here nor there.
That's true. But he never got kidnapped by a devil either.
Huh?
Sorry, kid. Look, forget about us begrudgers and bruisers. From the look of things, you've got your wits about you. A clever mind and a bit of style will take you a long way. Fight with those, and you may find you never need to use your fists at all.
In that case, want to buy a lucky ring I found?
Ha! Nice try, Shorty. Keep it up, though, and you'll be scamming with the greats in no time. It is, isn't it? Hope he makes it out of this mess with his wits in one piece. I'd like to see him set up in a proper home in the city. Every kid deserves that.
Don't be shy. Check it out. We've gone legitimate, and Mole put me in charge. What do you need?
Okay, so you've got a couple of choices here. So you can trade with him. You also have this option here.
I'm not supposed to mention it to anyone, but I do have something pretty special in stock. A key. What does it look like? What does it open? What treasures await behind its lock? That's for one lucky buyer to find out. Mole gave it to me and said I shouldn't let it go to just any old jackaday.
Okay, so you have some deception and persuasion options here to be able to utilize. I have deception proficiency. It's a 14. I've got a bonus of 13. So again, only fail it with a nat 1, which is bound to happen. So that's a big roll. And you're going to need more and more of those as you get into Act 3.
No, she didn't.
Okay, so now I have another option here, and I can go with Deception again. I lose favorable beginnings, but I'm still plus 10.
Really? But she said... All right. Here. I guess.
Okay, you're going to need the tower-shaped key a little bit later on. Well, not need it, but you'll want to have it a little bit later on. So make sure you've got somebody with some good persuasion and go up and get that key from Mattis. You can buy it. However, it costs you, I think, either 2,000 gold or 1,000 gold if you pass a check on it. The stuff you're going to get is not worth that. So you definitely want to try and get it for free.
In the market for something special? I'm alive, ain't I? What's not to like?
Okay, so Mole here has a couple of things. Evasive shoes are incredibly useful. Again, a straight up +1 to armor class is always beneficial from a clothing item. So we definitely want those, and I'm not going to up Mole. The stuff that we're buying here isn't that expensive. So we're going to buy the evasive shoes. They also have the Cloak of Cunning Broom. So whenever you disengage, you create fog cloud behind you that lasts for 1 turn. And basically, fog cloud gives you a lot of those same disadvantages to attack rolls and that sort of stuff that you see with darkness. So with this, if you want to disengage, you will then create disadvantage on attack rolls against you while you're trying to move away. And that's very similar to the Boots of Speed that have the Click Heels option, which allows you to dash and disengage, but you get disadvantage on those attacks against you. So a couple of very useful items here that you can pick up, because right now we don't have any cloaks, so we might as well pick up all of them that we can get, because everyone's going to benefit from the bonuses of them. right now. So you can also check and see what other things that they have. So the potions of invisibility are nice. The elixir of viciousness is great. It lasts for long rest. So you take it right when you wake up. And for the rest of your time, your critical hit number is reduced by 1. So if I need a 20, I now need a 19. So I can hit on a 19 or 20 with a crit. So instead of being a 5% chance to crit, I go to a 10% chance to crit. Every time you reduce that number, you add another 5% on your chance to critical hit. And that can become incredibly useful later on. So it's another one of those things that with Mattis, I always purchase it when I come see him just to buy it out of stock when I'm there. So a bunch of these other things are his little, trinket type things that don't really do anything in the game. There is a decanter of endless water in tabletop, which is actually really, really nice. This thing does not function as any of that sort of stuff, so don't think that you're going to get the ability to endlessly cause the wet condition on people with using this. They're prank items, is what they are.
Pleasure doing business with you. Don't be shy. Have a gander.
So now we're going to go have a couple of more talks here. But for this, Raphael is here. And remember, somebody wanted to speak to Raphael.
What's on your mind? Sounds boring. Oh, fuck.
Yes, darling. Darling, I thought you'd never ask. Lead on.
Okay, and now we're just going to leave camp.
So,
Premium
Astarion,
trinkets and
which of
doodads.
us would you rather feed
And
on
we're just doing
if you
this
had free rein?
for the conversation here.
No question.
Don't wander far.
And righteous.
Look, you're welcome and all, but I got to chat with bigger fish. Later.
Okay, some moles here, and let's talk to Raphael.
It's good to see you again. I'd ask if you've made any progress with your little problem, but the telltale twitching of your eye is answer enough. My dear, nothing is coincidence. Mortals trifle themselves with free will, as if their betters have not molded every potential path ahead. No offense meant, of course. I'm sure everyone in Last Light thinks they could have changed things. They're not the only ones ripe for temptation, you know. My last contract here fed me for decades. Family troubles. Not my family, of course. I never surrender knowledge for free. But one good turn deserves another, does it not? To repay you for the souls sent my way, I offer a taste of the truth. Ketheric Thorm, proud father, man of faith, utter fool. On the night the Harpers sealed him away, someone murdered his entire army in cold blood. Now who would possibly benefit from such a massacre? If you want to know more, I could work the exchange of such precious knowledge into the terms of your future deal. But the time for quibbling over clauses and contracts hasn't quite arrived. You'll be limping back to me soon enough. Not with you, at least. Although I sense there's something your friend wants to ask me.
I do. I have a proposal for you.
A proposal? If you're hoping to taste my blood, little vampling, think again. It burns hotter than wyvern whiskey.
This is serious business. devil. My old... well, a long time ago, someone carved infernal runes into my back. They are a fragment of a contract. I'd like to know what the full contract says.
Oh, such impatience. It's something very important to your master. But is it a love letter, a warning, or a deed of ownership? I could give you all the gory details. But of course, you'll have to do something for me first. Let me think about it and get back to you.
You'll get back to me? This is important, devil. When?
Don't worry, I'm motivated to help you. Scars often tell such wonderful stories. I think yours might be truly exquisite. I'll see you soon.
Don't be shy. Have a gander at the finest stock.
Okay, so he's obviously he has some history here, I guess, is the way to put it. That history goes a lot deeper than you would even think. When he says family troubles, you're gonna learn a lot more about that as we go through this. Now, I'm a little curious as to what's happening here.
Hiss! I say hiss! And yet you harm me by your very presence. This is my territory, and you're in it. I'll allow it. Good of you to notice. For my part, I have noticed the cleric is a liar. She promised me a bit of milk. Do you see any milk, do you? Nor do I. Disgraceful. I slinked, of course. You've had enough. Now go. Quickly. Hiss.
One of the greatest characters and one of the greatest NPCs in the game. Just is.
Premium trinkets and doodads.
So here's Alfira. So we'll talk to her.
Oh, you're all right. Thank goodness. I was worried they'd got you too. Wait. No one's told you. We were ambushed out in the darkness. By cultists. We surrendered. But that wasn't enough for them. They lined us up like dogs. Asherak was with the kids. Telling them it was going to be all right. Maybe that's why they picked him. Told him to kneel. They took his eyes first. Then his tongue. Rolan, of all people, saved us. He said he stayed in the grove because of you. And I'm damn glad of it. Without him, well, none of us would be here. Yes. He shielded me and the kids, while his brother and sister rushed the cultists. Cal and Leah were dragged away, along with the others. Rolan isn't taking it so well. None of us are, to be honest. How do you do it? How do you keep going? Heart's Requiem, right? The hero survives a war and rebuilds her life, stronger than ever. A tale worth remembering. Especially now. You've done so much for us already. But I have to ask. The others might still be out there. If they're not dead, they're in Moonrise. And gods have mercy on anyone in that hell's pit. Thank you. If anyone can manage it, you can. Just be careful up there, all right? I can't handle anyone else dying.
Okay, so a couple of important things were said there, and this is why this game, as well as the previous Baldur's Gate games, has always been so impressive to me. You had a choice right when you entered the Druid's Grove to go up and talk to Rolan and his siblings, and they were having a fight, and Rolan wanted to leave. You got a persuasion check there to be able to convince Rolan to stay at the Grove. If you didn't persuade him to stay at the Grove, Alfira is not here.
Good.
Because Rolan was not there to save Alfira.
Yes, Mom.
And then when you get here, you still find Rolan, but the quest for Rescue the Tieflings comes from him, not from Alfira. Alfira has one of the most important end game items in the entire game. And the only way that you can get that is to make sure that she survives the attack that you're going to see here on the Last Light In, but also the fact that you had to persuade Rolan in the first place so that she even makes it here. A small little, what may be inconsequential choice to you when you first encounter the Druid's Grove has a major impact on whether or not you can get one of the most powerful items in the game. And that is one of the things that's always been so fun for me about the Baldur's Gate games, is you can't take anything for granted, ever.
There's another bottle of Arabellan Dry back there. Put it on the bar, then piss off and leave me alone.
Jaheira said we should serve drinks, but that we shouldn't serve drunks.
Jaheira didn't save your ragged little tail from the cultists. I did. Cute. Maybe she'll write a ballad about me. She can leave out the part where my brother and sister were dragged away screaming while I was saving the orphans. If you hadn't filled their heads with all that self-righteous heroic crap at the Grove, none of this would have happened. Dead for all I know. Or in the cult's tower with the others who were taken. They're my responsibility. You go save the world. Or your own arse. Or whatever it is you do. I'll fix this.
Okay. So Roland's obviously in a state here about everything that's happened.
Don't be shy. Have a gander at the finest stuff.
He still won't speak. Just keeps going with the bloody song.
Nothing of use on his person.
His original writ of duty, signed by Eltan himself. Fella must be one of the very first Flaming Fist.
He must know something. Let's not give up on him yet.
Floric.
Hells. I know that voice. Will? In Timora's name, what happened to you?
The Hells have had their vengeance. And I doubt they are done with me.
Ye gods. Fate has no shortage of troubles to burden us with. I don't suppose you found a way into the towers?
We're going to ask about the fellow on the cot here.
Isobel cleared this place, and he just appeared. We think he's staying at the inn when the curse fell, which means he's been trapped inside for a century. It beggars belief he's alive at all. Hopefully, he'll come round. Tell us something useful about getting through the shadows. Right now, he seems to have little more to him than a refrain from some song or other. Cleric of Saluna. She's got a room upstairs if you want to meet her. Just don't interrupt her while she's doing whatever it is that keeps this place shadow-free. I doubt it too, but I haven't given up hope. Unfortunately, I won't be here when he comes around. I'm heading to Baldur's Gate to seek reinforcements. The Council sent a carrier pigeon with news that the city has been dealing with absolutist attacks. The Steel Watch is holding strong. I'll request that Lord Gortash send some of them to aid in the fight against Moonrise. The curse won't harm them.
Gortash, as in Enver Gortash? Last I knew, he was a minor player in city affairs.
A lot's changed since you left Baldur's Gate, Will. Gortash has gained considerable influence since then. The Steel Watch are the future of warfare. Gondian automatons that can be sent into battle without risking any lives. Except those of our enemies. Lord Gortash had only completed work on the prototypes before Ravengard and I left for Elturel, but even they were formidable. With the Steel Watch at our backs, we can storm the tower whatever Ketheric throws at us, I'm sure of it. I'll do my best, but there's every chance I'll fall to the curse or the cult before I reach the city. Don't count on me and assume no aid is coming. Work with Jaheira. That Harper's mind is as sharp as her blade. Follow her guidance. Farewell. We'll meet again, God's willing.
Now, before we go back to camp to change Astarion out, we definitely want to have the interaction over here.
Flame Cullough. That's your name, isn't it? Art Cullough? I'm Fistula.
Nathaniel and me climbing up a tree.
We need you, sir. One of our own's been taken, a Grand Duke. You might know something that could help us bring him back. We found him out in the shadows, just wandering. Nothing survives out there for long. Don't know how he made it, or where he came from.
This is no physical ailment. It is a spiritual malaise. The man's mind has been gripped by the Shadowfell, yet it has not broken.
No idea, I'm afraid. Whoever it is must be someone important to him. He's been saying the same thing over and over, ever since we found him. You hear me, don't you, sir? You might not be able to answer, but you hear me. A century locked inside a Sharan curse will do things to a man. But you're not alone, sir. We're here with you. And I'm sure you've got relations, maybe some long-lived friends even who want to be seeing you. Oh, if you know how to get through to him, don't hesitate.
Okay, so you have some checks here. You don't have to pass these, but they give you more information that you're going to learn a little bit later, basically. So we're not proficient in any of these, so we're just going to take our +1 from Jack of Trades and go from there. If we don't pass it, we don't pass it. It's not a big deal for us. Oh boy. We're rolling too well, chat. This is going to have to get balanced out, and I don't want it to be balanced out in the thing that we're about to do.
The patient is physically well, but psychologically detached, dissociated from himself.
He's been in the Shadowfell. All memories will have been stripped away. We need to remind him who he is. Some personal effects, maybe?
This was in his pocket. He doesn't seem to have any reaction to it now, but he held on to it for 100 years anyway.
You notice the distinctive calluses on the man's hands, the kind only developed from decades of playing the lute.
Okay, that's only a bard. You only get that option if it's a bard. It lets you know that he played a lute, and that may play a role in finding out who he is or what his condition is.
If he does, he isn't sane.
Okay.
Some parchment.
So
Looks official.
you gained the worn letter here, and these are his orders. He was sent here a long time ago, 100 years ago, to obtain information about what's happening at Moonrise Towers, headed by Ketheric Thorm and the Thorm family. And this is going to become important because remember Raphael's conversations where he said he had dealings here with family troubles. So his orders were to take lodging and begin investigation at the House of Healing. And that is now going to update the quest journal for that. So we turned against the Drider and sided with the Harpers when we came in here. That the Seek protection from the Shadow Cursed has been updated. To find a cure that's going to be continuing on for a long time. Help Kithrak Voss, we learned about that when he showed up at our camp. Rescue the Grand Duke, that's been updated because we met Counselor Floric again. She's heading off to get reinforcements. Rescue the Tieflings has been updated by both Alfira and Rolan here. And Wake Up Ark Cullough is telling us that we need to go investigate the House of Healing. And that has now put a mark on our map to go over to the House of Healing. And we are definitely going to go there. Certainly it's going to take us a bit to get there. We've got a lot of stuff to do on this side of the river first. But we will get there. So the Shadow Heart's quests are just updating as we go through. This Act 2 is a major portion of her quest line. So we did complete upgrading her heart and stabilizing her. We learned that Mizora is now wanting to go release some devil. And some of the other things here are just updates to the other companion quests. So everything else has been completed. And now we can head back to our camp. I'm wondering where's Barkus? Chat, remind me why Barkus isn't here. We're going to head back to our camp. We're going to swap out Astarion. Trying to figure out why Barkus isn't there. Barkus isn't in our camp anywhere?
Yes, darling. Oh, darling, I'm hurt. I guess I'll spend my evenings lounging here. Well, you do all the hard. It sounds awful.
Okay, and now we're going to go put Karlach back in the group. I wouldn't expect Barkus to be here anymore. He's gone from our camp, which is...
What's on your mind?
What I expected.
Fuck yes.
But he's not where he should be. I have a bad feeling. I'll go check it. I'll go check it off stream after we're done here today. I have a bad feeling he might have left for some reason when we took the long rest. I don't know if that was possible. But I don't know. I'll go back through my previous live stream and check.
The curse is upon us. As foul as I remember it. Perhaps even worse. But with the Oak Father's blessing, we may soon see it banished from these lands.
I thought we had told him to meet in our camp at the end of the Grimforge. Maybe I was wrong and I didn't do that. I could have sworn I did, though. There's no reason for me not to do it. Okay, so we had a conversation, or we need to have a conversation with Halsin here about Nathaniel, who we heard about by talking to Cullough.
He is? Then I must see him. Insensible or not, he knows something. Nathaniel is no ordinary child. He is the very spirit of this land. If this fist knows where he is, then perhaps we can save him. Save everything. I will go to see him at once. Join me when you can.
Okay, so Halsin is now going to take off.
Premium trinkets and doodahs.
And he is now going to be here at the Last Light Inn. And this can be very, very useful in what we're about to get into. Okay, and yeah, Barkus is definitely not there. So we may have to head out to Moonrise. I'll go back and check. If he did go to Moonrise, like Philip is suggesting, then we can go rescue him. We can take care of that portion of these quests fairly early on. And bring him back here so that we can interact with him.
Please, be welcome. Have a drink.
Oh, my gods.
To your very good health.
Okay, so you have a medicine check here. Again, we're not proficient in it, but it's a 50-50 shot. We can add in guidance, of course. Oh no. Oh, chat, this is bad.
You perceive a faint hint of cloth grass, a herb that is said to elicit the truth. Jaheira smiles at you knowingly.
It doesn't spoil the taste, if that's what you're wondering. Indulge me. Bottoms up. Well over a century old, and yet it hasn't lost a hint of flavor. Still not quite so sure about you, though. People tend to lose more than just flavor when illithids get their hands on them. I speak from experience. There's an air about you. Something alien. Answer me true and do not lie. The parasite is changing you, isn't it? Look around you. Good men, good women. Stranded here, 2 feet in the grave. If we're to survive, I have no choice but to trust you. Can I? Good. Because I'll cross your heart myself if you break it. I have every reason to be cautious. I've traced people like you. People with parasites in their brains. All the way here from Baldur's Gate. The cult of the Absolute is spreading through the city. Quietly, quickly, and with unsettling deliberation. We tracked them to this ancient village, only to be faced with a man we killed and buried over a century ago. Believe me, he was well and truly dead. I locked his corpse in the Thorn Mausoleum myself. He was a Sharan once. Took to building an army of dark justiciars beneath this very village. Alongside the local druids, we made it our business to see him deposed, dead and buried. But he's returned. Not only does General Ketherick Thorn live again, it seems he is no longer mortal. He has become, in fact, invincible. We met him on the road here, commanding an army of the Absolute, intent on destroying Baldur's Gate. I put an arrow through his eye myself, only to watch him pluck it out like a splinter. He healed right in front of me and chased us into the shadows. Things looked hopeless, but experience has taught me that no matter how bleak things look, there's always hope. You are that hope. Protected by your artifact, you can infiltrate his forces at Moonrise Towers, posing as a true soul. Find out what it is that makes him invincible, so we can strip him of his advantage. Once Ketheric is without his shield, the sword, together we assault his tower and put a final end to this blight. Without a cure to your infection, that lifetime might become rather limited. I promise I will do everything I can to make sure you survive this. Any cure starts with understanding the disease. Whatever magic Ketheric's using to control these tadpoles, it must be at Moonrise. Until then, we keep drinking wine when we meet. You're not our only secret weapon. Isobel, a faithful cleric of Selûne, and a light in the darkness. She cast the moon shield around the inn. It's the only reason we're still alive. She's upstairs in her chambers. Tell her I sent you, and she'll see you through the shadows safely.
Okay, so again, we learned a lot there about Ketheric and what's been happening here. He wants us to talk to Isobel. And yes, chat, we are going to talk with Isobel. We are going to do this. There's going to be one main difference. In that, I've told you many times, I do not save scum my playthroughs. We have gotten to see what happens in one of the outcomes of this fight, and we're going to explore that a lot more coming up in an hour and a half in the Paladin playthrough. I don't want both of these playthroughs to showcase that. I don't really care that that happened. I'm not trying to avoid it. However, it doesn't really make engaging content if both of these live streams are playing exactly the same as the other. So if we end up losing this fight here, that's why I'm doing it at the end of the live stream. If we end up losing this fight, I'm going to replay it off stream so that we end up winning it. Okay? That's the main difference that I'm going to do here, is that I'm not going to let this play out the same way that the Paladin one did, just because I don't want both of these live streams to be the exact same. It doesn't make any sense from a content standpoint of you guys watching it to be able to see it that way. So we're going to position ourselves here. We're going to get everything set up how we want it. And then we are going to save, and whatever happens with this, one way or another, hopefully it turns out good, but if it doesn't, we will be able to replay it so that it turns out okay, and I will do that off stream. Okay. So
Don't burn yourself. Toast.
we're going to bring everybody in here, except for Will.
Don't be shy. Have a gander at the finest stock.
Okay, and Will I'm going to put here. Now, the problem with Will being here is, for instance, you can't see Alfira from here. So anybody that I would put here, it doesn't really matter what happens with them. So if I put Shadowheart up here at this section of the ledge to try and cast something on Alfira, it wouldn't matter because I can't see her. She's hidden back here. So if Alfira gets impaled again here, then our only course of action is to try and distract the winged horror that's here. This Harper will distract the winged horror that spawns here, but this one back here will go right for her unless we can distract her. And Will, being here, hopefully he rolls well enough in initiative that he's able to either Misty Step down here, or he is able to find another way to disable him, such as by casting Hunger of Hadar or something like that, to be able to take him out. Or else, like I say, I can just Misty Step down there and let Will take the hits, because he will then go after Will instead of Alfira. But here I can still get attacks on stuff in here through the door, ranged with Eldritch Blast, and that sort of stuff. I can also cast Darkness in a spot down here that I could cover her completely up and give the Winged Horrors disadvantage on attacks against her. Even though they're going to have advantage because she is incapacitated or prone, those will offset and be, like I say, a little better chance of her surviving this. But you want Alfira to survive, and you want Isobel to survive. The rest of it is gravy.
Stop me yet.
Okay, so let's go ahead and talk to Isobel.
I should speak up.
I didn't realize I had an audience.
You can see Will in the background.
The true soul who's going to save us all. I'm Isobel. Pleased to meet you.
That is letting you know that these cutscenes are not pre-generated cutscenes. They are rendered utilizing the assets that are currently in the game. So that's why I think Alfira being down there, sometimes she gets caught in that spell that the Winged Horror casts down there, and very rarely she will get caught up in it. And that's why also last time when we tried to do it, we cast Sanctuary on her before we went into this cutscene, but the timer's just ticking down. This cutscene is playing out in real time. So if you're going to cast Sanctuary on Alfira, then you need to skip all of these dialogue options as fast as you can and skip all of the cutscene so that there's still time left on Sanctuary by the time by the time Marcus and the Winged Horrors show up.
We've been waiting, hoping against hope, for someone like you. Free from the Absolute's influence, yet able to walk among cultists. It's almost too good to be true. But I'd be a poor cleric indeed not to avail of a blessing when I see one. Let me guess. Jaheira sent you to beg a protection spell off her favorite cleric. Perfect. It'll make you immune to the lesser effects of the Shadow Curse, which will get you closer to the towers. It won't be enough to protect you against the areas of utter darkness, though, where the curse is strongest. This lantern should, though.
Okay, now remember I said that remember when we took our way in here and we sided with the Harpers during the Drider ambush, they took the Moon Lantern. Isobel now gives it back to us. So you don't get the Moon Lantern while you're still out there in the Shadowlands like we did in the Paladin playthrough. You get it here from Isobel. So you don't have to go to Moonrise Towers to get a Moon Lantern. She'll give you one.
Ketheric is a frightening man,
But you have something he doesn't. Allies worth having. While you're busy in the towers, I'll be sure to... Wait. Do you hear that? Something's wrong.
Now, I forgot to save before I did this, so I'm hoping that Marcus doesn't one-shot her. Otherwise, I'm going to get a turn. And I can save at that point.
Hello, Isobel.
Marcus, is that you? What's happened to you?
I've been blessed. You can be too. Come with me, and you can hear all about it from Ketheric himself.
He's a flaming fist. Or was. Came with the others when we created this haven.
And I thank you for your hospitality. True soul, my instructions are clear. Take the girl to Ketheric, alive.
A haunting face swims into your mind's eye, its instructions vivid in your mind. Nothing is more important than bringing the girl alive.
What's going on? If you have something to say, say it.
Okay. There's a reason that somebody wants Isobel alive. Marcus will knock her unconscious and take her. If Marcus is dead, as he was in the Paladin playthrough, the winged horrors have no such compunction. They will just kill her, and you'll see the consequences of that later. But either way, the Last Light Inn suffers the same fate. It's just in one, Isobel's alive, and in the other one, she's not.
Pathetic. The Absolute sees all. Your treachery will be punished.
The Absolute. Of course. You can't believe them, Marcus. Ketheric will never give you whatever it is you've been promised.
He already has. Time to go, Isobel.
That spell right there, I think, is what hits Alfira sometimes. Okay, so I'm going first. And Alfira is knocked out. When I played this same fight here 10 times over the week, she was there once. So we're going to have to deal with this. I was hoping I wouldn't have to. It just makes it that much harder. But we're going to have to deal with this. So we definitely want to drop a save here, because this is not going to be a fun fight for me to do at all. And I am going to have to Misty Step Will down here. I'm going to have to deal with this winged horror. Hopefully this one here, again, is going to go after Cirrus. But we have to try and save Alfira. Like I say, she has one of the most important items in the game, and she cannot give it to us if she is dead. That means that Will is not going to be a part of what's happening up here, but I think we can manage that as we go. So we're going to Misty Step. We're going to first. So Misty Step is a bonus action for us. We need to make sure that we keep that in mind. Now, winged horrors can fly, So putting the Hunger of Hadar on top of him is not going to stop him from moving. He's just going to fly out of it. So we need to distract him, and that means we need to get him to come after me. So I'm going to try and cause as much damage as I can here. We've got about a 40% chance of killing him straight off the bat with this. So let's see if we can up that a little bit by taking a potion of speed here. And we'll start off with Scorching Ray. Okay, that was outstanding. Okay, that's exactly what we needed to happen there. Now we don't have to necessarily move Will down there, because I don't think any of these winged horrors are going to go after Alfira. So now we can use his second action now to just start getting in some additional damages and things like that in here. And I would love to be able to drop this. He's got an armor class of 21, so he's going to be hard to hit. And I would absolutely love to start this off with my last spell slot here. So now, as long as we can maintain that concentration, we can now bring Call Lightning back in every turn using an action. So instead of being limited to just our Eldritch Blast, as long as we can maintain that concentration, we can now keep bringing Call Lightning in turn after turn after turn. So let's see what Marcus does here.
Come along, Isobel.
Okay, so he's moving completely out of the way. He's going after Shadowheart. Okay, so I now have an option here to utilize one of my level 2 spell slots, or one of my Warlock spell slots, to go after Hellish Rebuke. So I might as well cause some damage to him that just uses a reaction on one of my spell slots. So what's the level 2 spell slot here? Oh, it's just showing it as that because I guess I have the option to utilize this either way. Interesting.
You'll make excellent.
Okay, and I really wish Jaheira wouldn't do that. She does it every time. What this does is keeps reinforcements from getting in here, though. I understand it knocked that horror down, but it can fly, so it just normally flies off of it. But everybody else who has to walk through that door now trips and falls all over that. Okay, so we are going to be concentrating on Marcus with Karlach. Okay, so that means... Oh boy, I would love to drop that on him. It's only a 70% chance to hit, though. Oh, I want to so bad. But we're going to Frenzy. We're going to get Karlach going here. And something that I haven't done yet. Okay, so my next turn I'm going to drop a soul coin. And we're going to start going after Marcus here. And we're going to up this.
Well, look what we have here.
Okay, so I don't need defensive... Well, I can use it. I rolled a 24, so if I take 1 off of that, I would roll a 23. That would still get me a hit, and it would also increase my armor class and saving throws by 1. And I might as well try and lacerate to get damage over time going on Marcus. Okay. Good. That one is focused on attacking down there. And this one's focused outside. So Alfira is going to survive. So we are okay at this point. So let's see how I want to approach this. So this winged horror has 8 hit points left. So I think we are going to... Because these two are going to come in. I want Shadowheart to get moved. So this one's going to be next. Then the one outside the door after that. So that's these 3 here. So I need to get... Shouldn't have put... Well, no, that's common. Shadowheart has Lathander's Light, so that will blind the winged horrors because they're undead. Unfortunately, they still seem to hit Isobel a lot, and that's because her armor class is 11. So even if they have disadvantage on the attacks, they end up hitting her all the darn time. Which I really, really don't like. Okay, so I think... we're going to move out here and block the door. But first, we're going to try and kill this winged horror, and we're going to try and get some more damage on Marcus. Okay, and now we're going to go block this door. I want only one of these winged horrors. Actually, we can just move up right next to this one. I only want one winged horror to get into this room and attack Isobel this turn, if I can avoid it. And we can give... No, I think we'll be okay without it for now. Ooh, big hit. Okay, so actually it's trying to move past me. So I'm going to take an opportunity attack to try and get some damage in on the one that's trying to move past me. Oh no. Jeez. Oh god, that's exactly what I didn't need. I didn't need this. I didn't need it. Okay, so slight change of plans here. This is going to be bad because I don't know if I'll be able to hit him. I'm gonna take the opportunity attack from Marcus. Okay. I need to get myself in a very particular spot. So the first thing I'm going to do is heal Isobel. That's going to give her Bless and Blade Ward. I need to get this to land so it hits both of them, but not Isobel. So that looks like it'll do it. Okay, so that removes one of them. We'll be able to take out the other one before it gets another turn. Now, we just have to hope that Marcus stays focused on Karlach, because I'm not going to be able to lock him in place. I might be able to kill him with Will, though. So let's make sure that Shadowheart is right next to her, just in case one of the other winged horrors decides to fly up here. They'll have to make a blinding check against Lathander's light.
Your penance will be paid now.
Okay, here's Halsin. He's going to get into this fight here. Alright, so our main problem right now is Marcus. He's the only one that's going to get a turn. This one is down below, going after Cirrus. So yeah, this one is on the ground out front. This one is on the ground occupied by Cirrus and Halsin right now. This is the one that's sitting next to Isobel, and I've got a bunch of characters to go before it. But Marcus is going to get a turn next. He's got 23 hit points here. So what's our chance to hit? 88%? We need to end Marcus. We'll drop one here. Maybe we can get a kill out of that. We're going to drop all the others on Marcus. Okay. Will is just clutch. And now we'll move him back out here so that he can oversee the battlefield with Eldritch Blast. Or activate Call Lightning. So let's see if we can drop this here without hitting anybody else. We can. Okay. So now we're going to drop Karlach down here with our bonus action.
In that corpse. You should take a look.
All right. So.
Isobel, are you all right?
I'm fine.
Marcus has been with us since the start. They've been tracking us this whole time. And that was no random attack. You were the target, Isobel. They know how important you are. But they don't know about you. Ketherick will strike again. We need you to strike first. Discover the source of his invulnerability. Make him mortal so we can make him bleed. Good luck.
We're in more danger than I knew. If something happens to me, everyone in this inn is dead. Like that.
Yes, we know, Isobel. This is an important question.
Why does a man like him do anything? Power, spite, some kind of twisted personal morality. I can understand why he'd want me dead. Without me keeping the curse at bay, everyone in this inn, everyone intent on killing him, is dead too. As for why he'd want to take me alive, I don't know. And I don't want to find out. Now that we have you, I hope I won't have to. No mercy.
For Ketherick will have none on you. End this.
Okay, so that
Maybe we should ask someone else.
honestly, well, one, Will was the MVP there. So yes, you are absolutely right, Lord Henry. He came through seriously clutch there, and being able to have a haste potion. This is one of those fights where you cannot forget about the fact that you have been saving up a whole inventory's worth of potions for stuff. Okay? Use them here in this fight, and having the potion of speed here was a huge benefit in this fight for him being able to cast those spells around. So again, a big deal to be able to utilize those things. But this also illustrates this fight is not necessarily meant to be horrifically difficult. If you're trying to do multiple things at once, like save Alfira, who's down here, at the same time, it can be a lot harder. However, you're meant to really be focused on what happens in this room up here, and that doesn't necessarily get to be so bad. Unless you get some horrible extenuating circumstances. Shadowheart was down here as the distraction to try and save Alfira, and she got paralyzed before she even got a turn. That paralyzation of Shadowheart is what cost us the fight in the Paladin playthrough. I've had her down there a dozen times in these fights, and she can, in one turn, dash from down there all the way up to here, and on her second turn, she can dash all the way around and be outside this door and available to help out with what happens in the rest of this at that time. She also didn't even get a chance to cast Turn Undead because she was paralyzed before she even got that turn. That one saving throw there is what cost us in the Paladin playthrough. So position yourself, utilize all the abilities, potions, spells that you have available to you. If you have to swap out your party makeup to make things a little bit easier as far as being able to deal damage, with reckless attack giving you advantage on your attacks and that sort of stuff, then do it. Whatever you can do to make this work out so that you save Alfira and you kill Marcus before they kill Isobel, you have to have that to happen. Otherwise, you will see the extreme downsides coming up in about an hour. So we'll go through. The winged horrors don't normally have anything on them. We are going to search Marcus though, because Marcus does. So we get another Mind Flayer Parasite, so this should go up to 5. We have the Shifting Corpus Ring, which is really nice. It gives you the level 2 invisibility spell as well as blur. So you have opportunities to protect yourself on the battlefield as well as move around the battlefield better. And then we do have some more items that can just be sold off. Not right now. I don't have anything on my characters that protects against it right now. You can remove paralysis with a cleric spell, but again, I just didn't even have the opportunity to do that when I went through that fight. So we got some horrible luck, but that's not something that's out of the ordinary. Our Paladin playthrough started off with horrible luck when we failed an easy dice roll against the Tieflings to try when we were trying to release Lae'zel. And we ended up breaking our oath because we failed a roll and didn't have any other choice except to kill them. So we've had horrible rolls in key situations on the Paladin playthrough since the very beginning. And that's why I'm not saying it's cursed, but it has certainly had scenarios where things have gone badly because of things that really shouldn't necessarily have gone badly.
Mole would do
Yes,
the same for any
exactly,
of us.
right. With
You know
Scratch.
How do we get
So,
into Moonrise?
there
We
are
can't
things that
fight
we've
those
run
shadow
into.
things.
They could. I beat up those harpies, and they're way scarier than shadows.
You know what Mole would hate more than anything? Bad things happening to us. You've seen what's out there. We wouldn't stand a chance.
So they're reacting to the fact that we saw Mole get kidnapped during that cutscene. We're not going to be able to get Mole back for quite a while.
But it's
Our job to bring Mole back.
Look at her. She's a proper adventurer. And if we got hurt, Mole would be really mad at us.
Fine. But you gotta understand, Mole is family. Bring her back, please.
Okay, and that gives you the Find Mole quest. I believe there was something else that I did. Yeah, I forgot to, even though I bought them from him, I did not put the evasive shoes on. So my armor class, base armor class, is now 23. With shield, that goes up to 28. And with defensive flourish, it goes up to 32. And I didn't even have 2 turns to act there. No, I didn't. I only had 1 turn to act, and it was much more important to kill that other winged horror than it was to drop darkness down to fight in it. So, yeah, I didn't even have to utilize the normal combat tactic that I'm going to have for my bard in that scenario because Will just decided to go destroy everything. And I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing with Will. So, I will go back off stream and find out what happened to Barkus, why he's not here. But normally you see Barkus there, and you want to talk to Barkus because he has, again, one of the best items in the game, especially for a martial type character. So I think that gets us to a good spot to save our game here. And what we're going to be doing next week is we're going to have one big fight. Well, it's a fight broken into 2 parts here in the Last Light Inn. And it's a fight that on honor mode can be quite hard, quite difficult, and it's not to be underestimated. Here, I think we can manage it. We just need it. I mean, I know we can manage it. We just need to plan our positioning a little more carefully and kind of approach it from a certain direction, and we'll be okay. But we're going to have a big fight here in the Last Light Inn. We're going to explore around the environs of the Last Light Inn a little bit because we do have something that we can explore over here as well, which will be part of that fight I'm talking about. And then we are going to go about opening up everything on the east side of the Keonthar River. The Keonthar River runs here and here. They merge together here, and then the Keonthar River runs straight south. In the actual map of the Sword Coast, this whole map should be rotated 90 degrees clockwise so that Keonthar was running east and west, and the merge was over here on this side, and it was running this way. Willing to forgive them probably that little oversight. But there's a lot of stuff to do on the east side of the river here before we even start exploring the west side all over here before we even get to Moonrise Towers. Now, we can go directly to Moonrise right now, and we can deal with some vendors and do some questing around there. We're just going to save that for a little while and come back to it. We're going to do this systematically so that by the time we deal with the stuff on this side of the river. Hopefully we're level 8 and we can have access to the full capabilities of our Bardlock by putting one more level into Warlock. So that'll be what we're going to do. So as a reminder, in 1 hour, the Paladin debacle is going to be resolved. We left that on quite a cliffhanger before the end of last year. And now we have a fight for our very lives to deal with. So should be extraordinarily interesting right out of the gate. So I hope you all come back and rejoin me for that. But as always, I want to thank you all for being here today. Without your support, none of this would be possible. This is Commander Jorval saying, until an hour from now, fare thee well.